Number, the cabin deed. Number, the confrontation. Get off this property right now, before the police get here. Karen's voice echoed across the quiet lake as she pointed a shaking finger at my daughter Emma. My 26-year-old daughter stood her ground on the steps of our family's lake cabin, holding nothing but her phone and a folded envelope. She looked calm, but I knew that look in her eyes, the same look her late grandfather used to wear when people underestimated him. I don't think you want to do this, Emma said, her tone steady but low. Oh, you think I'm bluffing? Karen snapped, already dialing. This isn't your land, this is HOA property, and you're trespassing. You're going to jail. Minutes later, two sheriff's deputies pulled up in a cruiser, blue lights flashing. Karen waved them down frantically like her life depended on it. Yes, officers, that girl is trespassing. She broke into this cabin. This whole area is HOA protected. She has no right to be here. Emma didn't flinch. Instead, she slowly reached into her bag and pulled out a thick envelope. This is the deed, she said quietly, handing it to the deputy. It's in my name. Karen's face dropped. Her voice cracked. What? What? The deputy raised his eyebrows, looked down at the paper, then at Karen. Ma'am, did you say this was your property? And right there, Karen froze. Her lips parted, but nothing came out. Her face went pale as the truth started to sink in. Number, the setup. Let me take you back to understand how we got to that moment. I'm Rick, a 58-year-old widower, semi-retired, and living in the foothills of North Carolina. I've got one daughter, Emma, smart, patient, fierce when she needs to be. The kind of young woman who thinks before she speaks but won't let anyone walk over her. My wife passed away 5 years ago, and since then, it's just been the two of us, holding each other down. We inherited the lake cabin from my father, a beautiful log house right beside Lake Elm. That place had been in our family since the 1960s. It's peaceful, secluded, and most of all, private, which is why we were shocked when the HOA moved in. You see, 3 years ago, some wealthy developer started building a luxury neighborhood just up the hill. Fancy lake homes, modern builds, boat docks, and of course an HOA to maintain standards. They expanded their reach too fast, and somehow they started claiming that even our family's old cabin now fell under their lakefront community guidelines. I told Emma to ignore them. They're not worth the stress, I'd say. But Emma didn't like bullies, especially not the loud, nosy woman who led their hoe Karen Whitley. Blonde, always in workout gear, driving around in a golf cart like she owned the whole lake. And in her mind, she probably did. Karen first tried to warn us with letters. Then came the visits' rude ones. This dock isn't up to code. Your windows are too outdated. We expect all residents to submit their maintenance logs. It was ridiculous. We weren't part of the HOA. We had never signed anything, but Karen didn't care. She was determined to scare us out. Then I had to travel. My cousin in Oregon had fallen ill. I left for what was supposed to be 2 weeks, but one delay after another stretched my stay to nearly a month. Emma volunteered to check on the cabin every few days, water the plants, clean up, make sure everything was safe. She worked remotely, so sometimes she even stayed a night or two. That's when things started escalating. Karen began harassing Emma, taking photos of her car, sending text messages to my phone saying, "There's a stranger on your property." I told her to back off, but she didn't. She went quiet for a bit, then plotted something worse. Number, the escalation. On the day everything exploded, Emma had arrived with a small suitcase. She planned to spend a few nights by the lake to recharge. The air was crisp and fall colors had just begun brushing the trees. She had barely unlocked the front door when Karen appeared out of nowhere, marching up the path in her white sneakers like a woman on a mission. "You can't be here," she shouted. "I told your father already. This property falls under HOA law now. It needs to be vacated." Emma blinked, calm as ever. "With respect, this property belongs to me. My father transferred the deed before his trip." Karen scoffed, waving her arms like Emma was lying. "Nice try. The HOA doesn't recognize that. You can't just say it's yours." That's when Karen picked up her phone and dialed 911. Emma texted me as it happened. I was halfway across the country and helpless, but she knew what to do. She waited on the porch, deed in her hand, while Karen paced the grass like she was organizing a neighborhood watch rally. And then the police came. I told Emma to stay respectful, don't argue, let the paper speak. And she did. Just as the officer examined the deed, and read our family's name clearly listed as sole owners. A second patrol car pulled up, this time with the HOA's property manager in the passenger seat. The manager got out and said something that made my daughter's jaw tighten. I gave her permission to call the police. We have an upcoming vote to revoke non-compliant cabins from the lake area. That was it. Emma's patience began to crack. She turned to the man and said quietly, "Do you know it's illegal to threaten someone's property rights with a vote you can't legally enforce?" The manager shrugged. "Our lawyers think otherwise." The deputy stepped between them, now holding the deed up. "This here is a legal document filed with the county. It predates your HOA charter by 30 years. So unless you have something that says otherwise." Karen stepped back, arms crossed, eyes darting. But Emma wasn't finished. She turned, walked to the porch, opened her bag again, and this time pulled out a second folder. "These are the emails your office sent threatening to fine us, even though we're not part of the HOA. And this one," she tapped the page, "is a copy of the complaint I filed with the county attorney." Karen's face went blank. The manager's mouth opened, then shut again. The deputy glanced at them both. "Looks like we've got a bigger problem here." Over the next few days, things got worse. Someone left a note stuck to the cabin Gateno envelope, just a folded sheet that read, "This lake doesn't belong to you." Emma took a picture and sent it to me. I called my brother-in-law Thomas, who happened to be the county commissioner. By evening, cameras were installed around the property, discreet but sharp. On Wednesday morning, Emma woke up to a strange noise outside, a worrying, grating sound, metal on gravel. She peeked through the window, and there, by the end of the driveway, stood a man in an orange vest digging up our mailbox. Emma stormed outside. "Hey, what are you doing?" The man looked startled. "I was told this mailbox violates code. HOA order." Emma took a picture of him. "Who told you that?" He hesitated. "Some woman named Karen." Emma's voice rose. "This property isn't part of the HOA. You're trespassing." The man dropped the shovel and mumbled, "I'm just doing what I was paid for." Emma called Thomas, called the sheriff, and sure enough, the same deputy from before came out. When he arrived and saw the man standing there beside our half-dug mailbox, the officer didn't ask questions. "You're going to need to explain why you're damaging private property," he said, "because this time we're pressing charges. Number, the preparation." That's when Emma handed the deputy a copy of the security footage. The mailbox vandal was caught in full view, but more importantly, Karen was in it too, handing him an envelope and pointing at the gate. The footage would change everything, but what we discovered next changed everything even more. Emma had been doing research, and she found something that made my blood run cold. A quiet company name that kept appearing on adjacent property sales Blackwood Property Holdings. A company with no real employees, no website, just a P.O. box and legal activity surrounding land near the lake. Emma gasped when she clicked one document. "Dad, look at this." It was a property claim request filed just 3 months ago for an unclaimed 20-foot stretch of shore line filed by Blackwood, signed by a man named Derek Blackwood. I sat down, stunned. That name sounds familiar. Emma's fingers flew across the keyboard. Derek Blackwood, age 42, former real estate developer, sued in 3 counties for aggressive land grabbing, falsifying boundary lines, and filing fake public access restrictions to force homeowners out. Thomas confirmed it an hour later. Blackwood had tried to buy our cabin from Grandpa years ago and was turned down. Now he was back, using every trick in the book to scare us off. Karen had been a loud distraction, but he was the quiet monster behind the curtain. That night, Emma didn't sleep. Neither did I. We knew we had one shot to end this get ahead of Blackwood's legal games, file a land easement claim with historical photos, and block any further disputes. Thomas reached out to his contacts at the county registrar. I personally compiled 20 years of family photos showing the shoreline, dock use, and maintenance. We also hired a real estate attorney, Sheila Green, a tough, sharp litigator known for fighting dirty developers. After reviewing our files, she leaned in close to her camera during our virtual meeting and said, "He's using a tactic called hostile overlay. Developers find gaps in ownership, especially old land transfers with missing surveys, and claim those slivers as leverage. So he doesn't want just the shoreline," Emma said, connecting the dots. "He wants control," Sheila nodded. "Exactly. He can't win in a straight buyout, so he's trying to force you into a corner." Number. The climax. The next morning, a drone buzzed low over the cabin. Emma was sitting outside when it zipped overhead not once, but 4 times, scanning the roof and yard. She found a business card stuck in the front gate afterward. Drone surveillance provided by Blackwood Holdings. All property images will be submitted for legal review. But Emma didn't flinch. Instead, she did something bold. She invited Nina, a local investigative journalist, back to the cabin for an on-camera interview. "I'm done hiding," she said. "If he wants a war, he's going to have to fight it in front of the whole town." The segment aired that night. Emma stood on the porch of the cabin, the lake behind her golden with sunset, and told the story from the beginning. She showed the deed, the threats, the forged documents, and then she looked into the camera and said, "This isn't about just one cabin. This is about people like Derek Blackwood thinking they can take whatever they want by scaring people out of what's theirs. But we're not going anywhere." The story exploded. Local residents flooded the county commissioner's office with emails. Even the state attorney general's office began requesting files. But just when we thought we'd turned the tide, Thomas got a call from the courthouse. A judge had granted Blackwood's motion to fast-track his property claim hearing based on an emergency access violation. In short, he was accusing us of trespassing on his newly purchased shoreline, and the hearing was in 72 hours. Sheila wasn't surprised. That's what predators do, but we're ready. She filed an emergency counter motion and requested full discovery of Blackwood's bid documents. And that's when it all came crashing down. The clerk reviewing Blackwood's paperwork found something on a survey map he submitted that looked doctored. They ran it through the system and found that it had been lifted from an older fishing club record, then photoshopped to include Blackwood Holdings' name and a false approval stamp. Forgery felony level. The courtroom was packed on hearing day, not with lawyers and officials, but with neighbors. Locals who had never stepped foot inside a courthouse before came to watch the showdown. Emma sat beside me at the plaintiff's table, calm and composed in a navy blazer. Her eyes, however, were fire. Blackwood's lawyer spoke first. "Your Honor, Mr. Blackwood legally acquired a 20-foot parcel of unclaimed land along Lake Elm. Our claim is not against the Carter family as individuals, but against their unlawful use of this land for dock placement and shoreline access." Then Sheila stood. "Your Honor," she said firmly, "this case isn't about boundary lines. It's about manipulation, forged documents, and a campaign of threats and harassment against the rightful owners of long-standing private land." Then she dropped the bombshell. Exhibit AA scanned map from Mr. Blackwood's county bid, and Exhibit B original survey it was lifted from, submitted decades ago. As you can see, Exhibit A contains doctored additions, fake boundary lines, and a forged approval seal. The courtroom murmured. Blackwood's face twitched. The judge leaned forward, eyes narrowing. "Forgery?" Sheila nodded. Confirmed by the county clerk and under current investigation, the judge turned to Blackwood's lawyer. "Counsel?" The lawyer scrambled for words. "Your Honor, we were unaware. You didn't check your own client's filing?" The judge snapped. "We trusted his documentation. That didn't fly?" The judge looked straight at Blackwood. "Mr. Blackwood, this court takes fraudulent land filings very seriously. You will have a chance to respond, but as of now, your claim is suspended until a criminal inquiry is completed." But Sheila wasn't finished. "Your Honor, we also submit into evidence footage from the plaintiff's HOA recording of 2 individuals hired by Mr. Blackwood to illegally enter their cabin, one of whom testified in writing that they were paid in cash by Mr. Blackwood to scare the family off. That was the killing blow." The judge didn't even blink. "This case will proceed to a full civil trial. In the meantime, I am issuing a restraining order against Mr. Blackwood and his affiliates." Blackwood stood up suddenly. "Your Honor, this is all a performance. She baited me. They set me up." The judge banged the gavel. "Enough. Sit down or I'll hold you in contempt. Number. The resolution." The next morning, Nina published her full expose. How a family protected their cabin from a ruthless land grab and exposed a decade of dirty deals. The article went viral. Soon, other families in nearby counties came forward with similar stories. Turns out Blackwood had been targeting vulnerable owners for years. A class action lawsuit formed. Karen, meanwhile, had quietly resigned from the HOA. She issued a cold apology and moved to her sister's home out of state. no one came to her farewell coffee event. Within 6 months, Blackwood faced criminal charges in 3 counties. His property company dissolved, and he was ordered to pay $2.3 million in damages to the families he'd defrauded. The judge made it clear, land grabbing through intimidation and fraud will not be tolerated in this jurisdiction. Emma and I rebuilt. The cabin was cleaned, the locks were changed. The dock, which had once been a source of worry, became a symbol of victory. One crisp Saturday morning, we held a gathering, not a protest or a press event, but a celebration. Locals brought food, old photos, and stories. Thomas gave a short speech. This family stood firm in the face of lies. They reminded us what it means to fight for what's right, not just for land, but for dignity. Emma smiled quietly beside me, holding a cup of lemonade. Someone asked her, "What kept you from walking away?" She answered simply, "Because they thought I would." The lake shimmered behind us. Later that evening, just as the sun dipped below the trees, Emma stood at the edge of the dock with a small envelope in her hand. Inside was a photo of her mother standing on that very spot 30 years ago, holding baby Emma in her arms. She whispered something I couldn't hear and gently let the photo slip into the water. And I knew in that moment she wasn't just letting go of fear. She was reclaiming our story, our family, our land forever.